guys, and welcome to a new video on Sonal's life. Now, for a lot of people, the big time comes in January or August or even October, but for me, the best time for New Japan is the Best of Super Junior tournament, and we have just finished the Best of Super Junior 32, and I always say this every year, like, it's the best tournament of the year, and I love it, and actually I can't say enough good things about this year. So obviously with the final just happened, I am back with a sort of rundown of everything that happened in the tournament, my favourite matches, the MVPs, and what happened in that all highly anticipated final that will determine who is going to face champion El Desperado at Dominion for the IWGP Junior Championship. So let's get going. This year was absolutely phenomenal. There was people from so many companies. We had obviously CMLL representation, UK representation, US representation, whether it was independent or AEW. We had DDT, we had Dragon Gate. It felt like a proper Best of Super Junior tournament. We got to see new people. I mean, like, in a sense, that didn't really work this year because I already knew Dragon Dyer because he was in last year. Mao is someone that I know because when I used to watch DDT full time, he was one of my favourites. Robbie X, similarly, I've watched him in the UK scene. But for generally Seoul New Japan wrestling fans, this was such an eye-opener to see the different worlds of not just pro wrestling in Japan, but junior wrestling across the world. We had two very diverse blocks. And I always said, like, going into this, if you watch my preview, I knew who I wanted to win, but, like, there were so many people who could win. The junior division is always my favourite. It's always full of my top wrestlers. Like, if you ask me, even now, Sonal, who's your favourite wrestler while he is still injured, it would still be, like, Doki. And in the past, if you say 2018, maybe aside from, like, Jay White, it was Yo. Do you know what I mean? They are so phenomenal. So, I'm just going to start with, there was a grievance that was ongoing from fans. And this was that they didn't think there was any overarching storylines. Now, to an extent, I get it. There was no big storyline going into this, especially with the main champion, Desperado. However, I want to preface and say that this didn't actually make a difference for me. I liked that each match had a different story, that each guy had, like, a different relationship with the other, whether you had the really long time ones, so for example, like, Sho and Yo, Ishimori and Robbie Eagles, the young guys, things like that. They were great overarching stories, but actually, by having all these little stories, it was just a lot more fun. So I personally just went in going to watch amazing matches, and again, the only issues we had in terms of match quality was House of Torture. Yoshinobu Kanemaru in the first block and Sho in the second. At the start, actually, there was like a bit of like, I thought, oh, the first two matches of them didn't have much shenanigans, like, this is going to be good. That didn't last. So let's, like, discount Sho and Kanemaru, because actually this was probably one of my favourite tournaments I've watched, and I have been watching Best of Super Junior since 2018. Actually, it was my first ever proper New Japan tournament that I watched, so yeah. I think I'm going to start by, like, listing my favourite matches of the tournament. I have a list here, and I remember I started by doing day one, this match. I got too much by the end of it. So I'm just going to go through it all. So the first one is Akira versus Fujita. If you watched my preview, you know that those two were my top two guys to win. And I was really upset that they were in the same block. This was first day, and it came out all guns blazing. These two are very similar, but very different. Obviously, they're both very young. Akira is 25, 26, 25. Fujita is only 22. And they really want to be that future of the junior division. And actually, they have quite an interesting style. So Fujita going in, we know he is Team TMDK. So he has got the Noge Dojo basics. He's also very high fly, but he has that really strong submission game. Initially, Akira was a very much like a high-flying speed guy, but if you watched his documentary on New Japan, you should definitely go and watch it, his and Fujita's. He was obviously trained and has so much influence by the legend that is Tajiri, and he actually went back to Kyushu Pro to train, and that's how he got a brand new submission, because he explained, I can't just rely on my finisher now. If people target my leg, it's going to make it irrelevant. So this was good, you saw him adapting. And actually, it was such a strong match that had everyone on the edge of their seats. So yeah, definitely go and watch that. And I'm still very bitter that they put them in the same block because it meant we couldn't have them in the final. On the first day, the first 2 days actually were phenomenal. Like, there was no single match that was bad. Actually, this was the ones where we had like Taguchi and Ishimori, and every match from the start of the card to the end was perfect. But we had El Desperado versus Titan. This was also an amazing match because you have two guys who are obviously luchadors, but very different styles. Titan is that high-flying luchador. He's like Matrix, he's fast, very cool. Whereas Desperado's always been a junior, he's always been more mat-based. This is obviously based off his submissions, and that's why he was a perfect fit in Suzuki-gun. What I love is that even though Titan is not full-time, and obviously now he's unaffiliated because he doesn't have LIJ, the crowd still love him. And this was so much fun. It was inside, it was outside. There was so much dynamicism. That's not a word. It was so dynamic that you didn't care who won in the end. Day 2. So actually, okay, so I told you, I said that day 2, one of the good ones, Ishimori versus Taguchi. I know SP3 on True Heel Heat will say, because we actually did the podcast just after it started, like, oh, sound like just because like it's two guys who are in their older years. No, I think what it comes from is Taguchi versus Ishimori was so good because you have a perception of both guys that Ishimori is just like this big weight guy and like he does stuff and like he's good but like never that good. We all know Taguchi is like the funky weapon, but this match proved how much fun they can have while just actually putting on a really good match. And on this one we also had Ninja Mac versus Robbie. Shout out to Ninja Mac, who, guys, I remember I interviewed. And also shout out to Robbie X, who obviously we all know, I've been watching him for years. This match, I think, maybe is where people went a bit half and half on Ninja. This was phenomenal. It was very short. But these two guys are massive high flyers. It was a real test, a real showcase of the junior heavyweights. At one point, and this sort of became Ninja Mac's thing of like he was going viral. He was like doing moonsaults out of the ring. But then as Robbie went up the aisle, he just kept doing it and doing it and doing it. It was great. Robbie X and Ninja Mac actually were two of the standouts in terms of like what this tournament has done for them. Ninja Mac, while may not have been getting many points, he's going viral. People are noticing him. This is Robbie X's first tournament, and he has made such a standout. He picked up massive wins over very important people. So yeah, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of Robbie X, not just as a tag team with Ishimori, but as a solo wrestler. And like I said, I'm not gonna go through day by day because I could have literally put every match on this, but we had Fujita versus Hiromu. This was the past, I guess you could say, versus the future, or the present versus the future. Hiromu versus Akira. Akira is another one who is just amazing. He's not, I'm not going to put this at MVP because actually I think that there's so much more that Akira can give to us. But yeah, this match was great. Robbie Eagles versus Titan. Yo versus El Desperado, Dragon Dyer versus Robbie X, Robbie Eagles versus Desperado, and Mao versus Show. That's a special shout out just because it was fucking nuts. There was a truck. These matches definitely go and watch, but there's one I want to particularly point out to, and this was Desperado versus Mao. Now, if anyone who doesn't know Mao, you definitely got your perfect showcase of what he is in this tournament. Mao is a phenomenal wrestler, but actually at the core of it, he's DDT. So I'm just going to read out a little summary of what I did. Because like I said, it's been like 3 weeks of matches and I can barely remember stuff. So this one I really wanted to write about. So it was a mix of craziness and humour. There was a 20 count broken by Mao doing something insane on the outside. Red Shoes was hit with a stunner. There was no referee for a moment. So they went full DDT. If anyone's watched DDT, they like doing matches with like really weird props. If you watch the Show versus Mao one, you'll see they had the bike. They had to do stuff with Lego. This time they brought the plastic boxes. So they just fell it off them. They were like trying to obviously fight to see who could get into it. And then they just went, oh, okay, we're both going to fall into it. And then there was a proper slugfest with closed fists. Mao kicked out of Pinche Loco. I can promise you, this probably wasn't everyone's cup of tea. But for me, it was, aside from the final that I'm going to mention, the match of the tournament. Because I think that Mao had done the perfect thing this tournament. He picked up an amazing amount of points, I think about 12. But he used this to showcase and to put, like, to hit back at all of the perception that people have about DDT. When I watched DDT, yes, there was a lot of matches that were just a hell of a lot of fun. Yes, there was Lego, there was a blow-up doll, there was Danzoku Diano showing his ass more than Taguchi does. But when it came to it, and this is why you have stars like, we've got obviously Takeshita, Kenny, and Ibushi were all DDT. But guys like Uno, Chris Brooks, so many wrestlers who, yeah, they can have fun. I remember once I watched a match where it was just like drinking. But they can put on a match of the year candidate and contender. They are miles above so many wrestlers, but it's just that they like to have fun. I always say that, like, I love DDT. I watched it religiously with Tokyo Joshi for so long. But I dropped it not because I didn't enjoy it anymore, but because I didn't have time. And actually watching Mao again and seeing, like, Cannon make his appearance and stuff makes me kind of want to go back and watch it again and, like, start my DDT train. That I'm not sure if that's going to happen, but yeah. Yeah, so it was full of so many amazing matches. My MVPs... So these aren't the people who get the highest scores or the ones who had the best matches. It's the ones who stood out the most to me. In Block A, I am going for Dragon Dyer. Last year, I believe this is like second or third. Dragon Dyer got a miserable amount of points. I think he got like 2 or 4. This year, yeah, he didn't pick up loads, but he showcased that he was getting big wins over very big stars. He always comes out with a smile. He's so positive, and his moveset is no joke. He obviously is so high-flying, so fast, so dynamic, but he has such a nice, fresh personality in the ring. And he had so many first-time matchups, and he's still very young. He's 98 liner, so not as young as our youngest guys like Akira and Fujita, but again, still very fresh. And I'd love to see him again in not just the Best of Super Junior, but I'd like to see him more in New Japan, because I think he's great. He fits perfectly with Hontai. And there was none of his matches that I was like, I don't like watching this. I had a smile on my face. His music has got stuck in my head. So yeah, we love you, Dragon Dyer, and we hope that you will be back next year. Block B, there I have 2. Titan and Robbie Eagles. Now, I said it wasn't based on who has had the consistently best matches. But if you're going to put 2 guys up there, Robbie Eagles and Titan are those 2. Every single match they had was perfect. I saw someone saying it was a crime that Robbie Eagles didn't have any main event. Yes, it was a crime. And I think I said in my preview, I was like, if I can have a top 3 of who I want to win, it would be like Fujita, Akira, and then Robbie. Because Robbie Eagles, and I don't want to keep saying this, but I keep saying this, he's such an amazing wrestler. I don't think he's underrated, because I think that a lot of people appreciate it, but I don't think they appreciate how long he's been in the business and how much he has done for wrestling in Australia. So the fact that this is, I believe he's now tied with Prince Devitt as the Gaikokujin with the most Super Junior entries. So I hope we see him again next year so he can beat that record and continue as a proud member of Team DK. Titan, similarly, there wasn't a single match that he did that felt lackluster to me. He was always on the top of his game, not only making himself look good, but making all of his opponents look good. Except maybe Sho. But I don't think anyone can make Sho look good. Like, this was impossible in this tournament. Dragon Dyer, Robbie Eagles, and Titan, you are my MVPs of this tournament. So obviously, after a long winding tournament, we had a very conflicting result for me, as we saw. There was quite a lot of tie breaks. I liked that there was so much like uneasiness and unsurety of who was going to win. Like, there was tie breaks in both blocks. We saw the winner of Block A was Kosei Fujita, and the winner of Block B was Yo. Now, this was very hard for me because, you know, I had Fujita win. I've never got a better Super Junior prediction right. But if you've been following me for long enough, you will also know that I am the world's biggest Yo fan. I've been a Roppongi 3K fan since 2018. Yo has always been one of my favourite wrestlers. Now, it was very interesting because the discourse with this, people seemed upset that Yo did it. They almost like flipped on him. They were like, well, he doesn't deserve it. I don't know if he's doing the best. But I think Yo is one who perfectly deserved to be in the final again. Everyone pushes this future. But like with Hiroki Goto, the future doesn't have to be somebody new or young. Yo has been in this company for like over a decade. And he's only really been known as a tag guy. So I love that he got this opportunity. The final itself was great. We had some mix of like singles, tags, a lot of stuff building up to Dominion now. So for example, like we had Gato versus Evil. That was going for the match he's got with Finlay. I think they're also teasing a new member. Might be me. Goto and Shingo's match was teased for the heavyweight championship, the tag championship. It was a very good show from start to end. But we were all there for the final, and holy God, I've watched, what is this now, my 7th? It'll be my 7th best of Super Junior final, and this might have been the best. Yo and Fujita are very different wrestlers. They have very different styles, very different personalities. Fujita is very standard wrestler. He's very gritty. He's the young punk. Yo is very unpredictable. You don't know what he teeters on the edge of so many things. And that's what made this match really interesting to watch. I'm going to point out a massive shout out to Yo for all of his tributes to former Chaos members and current Chaos members. So we saw going for Rainmakers with Okada, just basically doing Yano stuff, Ishii chops. There was the Yushigoroshi from Goto, and there was also a shout out to Yoshihashi, which was great for me. And this was really fast and dynamic. I liked how split the crowds were. Like the first seconds, they were chanting for Fujita. Then when Fujita beat, like, Yo was on the ground, they were chanting for Yo. I think this match went about over 30 minutes, so it was less than actually the longest ever final, which was Yo versus Hiromu in 2021. But I can tell you, my heart was like on my chest the entire time. It was really cute because TMDK were on the outside, so Hartley, Oiwa, Zach and Robbie watching their little boy shine. And that sort of added to the whole atmosphere of it. They were trying to hit finishers and you didn't know who was going to win. I know like my head said Fujita, but my heart wanted Yo. And it's like there was one moment where Yo was down. Fujita had put like submission after submission. Even Zach was like fighting, like just move him. And Yo was just down there and I was like, oh my God, this is the end. But Yo got an extra wind of life. In particular, it was very funny. You know, Yo bloodies very quickly on his chest. So after their chop fest, he was like bleeding, and the worst person to do that for Yo is Hiromu. But Yo almost got another lease of life with that. He saw the blood chest and he found that exciting. That adrenaline went surging through him. So I added another layer. Like, when they said the 15-minute mark, it barely felt like 5 minutes. Similarly, when they said like the 25-minute, this match was so good because it didn't feel long. You were glued, you didn't look away. And in the end, Kosei Fujita once again made history. He pinned Yo, and he is the youngest ever Best of Super Junior winner, beating Will Ospreay's record. He got the trophy. The members of TMDK looked so proud. I think Hartley Jackson was crying. Then Fujita went through the audience, and I'm so happy. I mean, I'm conflicted because I would have loved Yo to win. But it means, one, I got a prediction right, but two, I think Fujita deserves it. He's been working so hard since he was a young lion. He broke the mold. Obviously, he didn't have a traditional excursion, but we've seen the potential in him for so long. So yeah, it was the perfect end to an amazing tournament. And I guess what's next? Well, we've got the New Japan Soul Short Tour, I believe that's the name, and then Dominion, which I believe is like the second biggest show. We've got title matches galore. So yeah, New Japan is still on a roll. Whether you liked the tournament or not, whether you were a bit iffy on the storytelling, I personally loved it. But tell me your thoughts now. I've been blabbering on. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on the tournament, the winner, your matches of the tournament, your MVPs. Let me know in the comments. Let me know on social media at wrestling_chat. If you liked my video, make sure to hit like, share, and hit subscribe. I recently hit 3,000 subscribers, which is insane to me. I always joke that like people might not think that's a lot compared to other outlets, but for me, that's unheard of. I couldn't have imagined that. So thank you for watching me. I will be here for the whole year, for as long as it takes, catching up with New Japan, doing previews, reviews, content. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the tournament. Hopefully you guys enjoyed my video, and I will see you soon. Bye.